Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and/or their affiliate and supported ministries and/or nonprofits. So now, without any further say-so, here's a man with a plan to put gold in your hand, Tony Hammock.
Good morning, everybody out there in Acts Land. All you viewers out there tuning in, hopefully for another week. If you're new to the show, we talk about alternative assets, and we spend a lot of time talking about gold and silver. And speaking of silver, I have a very, very distinguished guest with me today. I'm very excited to introduce Dr. Paul Collins.
Hello, Tony. Good morning.
Good
morning, people in Acts Land.
Yeah, we've been talking off and on now for a couple months about precious metals and strategies and how they kind of interweave with the Bible, and in fact, some people call gold and silver God's money and so forth. And the other day, I felt inspired. I called him up, and I figured he'd be really busy, but as it turned out, we were very, very fortunate to get Dr. Paul on the show this morning. So I'm excited about this particular show, and hopefully he is too. He's here, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. And what are your thoughts on what's going on? Did you watch the debate last night?
I clicked in 3 times for about 5 seconds and clicked out because I don't like to go to bed with troubles on my mind.
Oh, yeah.
And this political scene is such that I see it as a huge thing of playing gotcha these days. And I'd rather just catch the reviews later, which I was doing this morning, catching the reviews a little bit.
Yeah, I read that President Trump interrupted Biden 73 times.
Well, and I also read that Joe Biden was very disrespectful to the president because he told him to shut up twice.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking of it when I woke up this morning. I know back in, I guess that was 16. I can remember there was one debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. That was before he was president, obviously, and stuff. And I remember that he had been coached and told to be very, very, very polite. Excuse me. And he did a very good job in that debate. In fact, that may have been what, kind of put him over the top of stuff. And why he took this approach last night, the only thing I can think it was an attempt to rattle Vice President Biden, and obviously it didn't work. And Mom always said don't talk politics and all that kind of stuff, so we won't spend a lot of time on this. It's just that I know that's on everybody's mind, and I just we were kind of like you. We watched for a little bit, my wife and I, and then we moved on to other things.
Well, I felt like there was more redemptive qualities in NCIS New Orleans reruns, and that's what I watched.
Well, and I guess the thing I was most disappointed in, and I probably should keep this to myself, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out there, was Wallace, the moderator. I didn't think he did a very good job. One, he was the one that came up with the questions, so they were his questions that were being asked. But I mean, I don't think either candidate acted presidential, and I don't think that he kept control of the debate in a professional way.
He didn't. The little bit that I saw, I heard his questions and the way he handled things. And then having seen him prior to this in many interview settings, I'm an independent politically because my first allegiance is to the kingdom of God. When it comes to party politics, I'm an independent. But I am a conservative. And I see Chris Wallace as a guy that works for a supposedly conservative network struggling to fit their profile when really he is not as conservative as the network that he serves. And that does not make him a good candidate to be an interviewer. Those interviewers ought to be truly neutral. They really should.
Oh, I think so too. In fact, the last thing I'll mention, and we can move on to some other things on our agenda because we've got a full a full show scheduled here is that I was watching the little bit I was with my wife Lorna, and after I could see what was going on, I told her, I says, what they should have done is they should have had each candidate in a glass enclosure. One, they could have justified it because of COVID-19.
Sure.
But then, like the minute the 2 minutes were up, or like when Biden had his 2 minutes to talk, they could just mute Trump's and vice versa, so that you could see maybe Mr. Trump, his mouth moving and stuff, but you couldn't hear him because he was muted. And I just thought that would have been a much better tactic.
I think that would have been a good tactic to mute both of them, personally. Anyway, I do want to put in a good word here.
Yes, sir.
For Acts Ministry and Acts Media Group. Coming up sometime shortly now, there's a new program coming on Acts Media Group, and it will be hosted by none other than our own Jason Cobb, and it will be a program designed to determine here's what Donald Trump, our president, his stance is on an issue. Here's Joe Biden's stance on that issue, so that Jason will do an unbiased evaluation of both stances, both positions, and the idea is then you choose. So it's going to be a great show. Great show.
Well, it sounds like it. Very timely, obviously, in these next couple of weeks. But, the one thing last night that I heard out of all that noise, let's call it noise, that alarmed me the most, and I'm not trying to say I'm on one side or the other. I'm trying to be neutral as a person conducting this show. But, when Biden was asked about if he won, what he would do to get things going, his response was, well, we're going to give business owners money. But that may not be exactly the words he used, but he was like, well, we're going to take and make sure that, small business owners and businesses get money and stuff like that. And, it kind of took me a minute to think about what he just said, but basically, we've been talking about this on this show for a while. They've printed another $3 trillion since January. And, right now I'll look at the debt clock here in a minute, but I think we're at $27 trillion in debt, and that's not even factoring in all the entitlement plans. So for him to have the solution being, let's give some more money to these businesses, I just don't know if that is the thing. And, I can't help but at night, like last night, it was just the three of us because Ace is back at school in Tulsa. But, I look at Luke, he's 13, and it just scares me to death thinking the future and what we're leaving for our kids. There's just going to be a lot of different things going on than you and I probably ever encountered.
Oh, my. Yeah, this is so totally different. Just before the show, I mentioned to you and to Matt and Jason that the $100 bill in your wallet in 1985 today has the value of $15. And I also saw this morning in some of my early morning monetary research that the average American household income is just a little bit under $68,000 a year. Now that's surprised me that it's that high.
Right.
However, if the average American household had been adding debt like the federal government, they would have increased their credit card debt by the same amount.
Oh my goodness.
$68,000 per year. So we're not talking here just about governmental debt, but we're talking about consumer debt as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you add in the consumer debt, that $27 trillion looks like chicken feed almost. This is a sad state of affairs about monetary matters in America today and the world.
Well, it's the world and stuff. And I've got to tell you, I told you yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, I've got a couple of reports that I want to share with you. We can do it kind of more after the show. Sure. But, one of them is the new crisis currency. I've got it in a paper protector here, so I don't know if that glares as you get a chance to look at it. But I've been tuning into a couple of different research companies, and this is about the new crisis currency, why every American should own at least $100 of the hardest money the world has ever known. And doggone it, I went off and I left the other report on the printer. which was talking about the state of our currency and how it is really interesting on how things are changing. And I don't mean to bring this up and then start some kind of a mass hysteria or a run at the bank or anything, but I mean, there's just a lot of things going on right now that you need to kind of maybe pay attention to. Like, for example, we were talking with Matt and Jason before the show started about how prior to 1969 we had the $100 bill, we had the $500 bill, we had the $1,000 bill, we had the $5,000 bill, and we had the $10,000 bill. Well, in '69, they did away with all those, and now, right now, the largest bill you can get in U.S. currency is the $100 bill. And I bring that up because I'm wondering, it just seems like they're trying to do away with our ability to deal with cash for larger transactions.
Well, not only that, Tony, but there's a psychological edge involved here, too. If people had to start walking around carrying a wallet full of $1,000 bills, they'd be yelling inflation to the rooftops and to the clouds. Mm-hmm. And the government does not want the American people to become overly inflationary minded. So they downplay the fact that the value of currency is downplayed big time.
Well, but I mean, I agree, but I think what they do is it's kind of like the guy on the street with the 3 shells,
oh, yes.
and he's got the little thing underneath. They do that, but then as you just mentioned, a $100 bill now is worth, what'd you say, $15? $15. And so really what's happening is the dollar is getting weaker and buying less over time, and they're I think they're currently always changing what goes in to make up CPI, which stands for Consumer Price Index.
Right.
Because I mean, when you think of it, I mean, we go to the grocery store like everybody else, and we've had 4 boys in the house. Right now, the 2 older ones are living on their own, and there's some items that are week in, week out staples that have gone up considerably. I mean, food, meat. Just things like that are just outrageous as compared to what they used to be, and some of those are not showing up in the CPI calculations. I guess before I brought this up, I should have brought a list in so we could actually point to it and so forth. But anyway, I would agree with you that I think it's interesting the way this is going because our dollars just don't buy as much as they used to. The analogy I like to always use, and for those of you that tune in, week out, hopefully there's a lot of you, is, in 1965, you could have bought a brand new Ford Mustang for $2,500. And, you could have went into the dealership back then and you could have had $2,500 in cash, or you could have had 2,500 ounces of silver. Because back then, an ounce of silver was worth $1. And so you fast forward to today and go into a dealership with $2,500 in cash and attempt to buy a new car, and how far do you think you're going to get?
Get it.
Yeah.
Get it.
I mean, but if you had 2,500 ounces of silver today, do you think you could buy a new car? I think you could probably, depending on the car, buy a couple of them, just because silver, yesterday it went up a couple pennies and stuff. I think it's, well, you know what? Hold on. Let me be exact here. None of this speculating. Let's just get silver right now. The ask on silver is $23.71. And so you got to figure if you had 2,500 of those, you'd have a lot of money.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah, and you could probably, if you didn't have to have leather and you didn't have to have a V8, you could probably get 2 cloth interior 6-cylinder Mustangs for what that would add up to.
Tony, one of the advantages of being 85 years young is having observed a lot of trends monetarily as well as in all kinds of social and governmental situations. And I remember when my brother, who was 6 years older than I, back in the happy days in the 50s, when he purchased a brand new Chevrolet. That was plain, and it had 3 on the column, as they said, and so forth. and I think he gave brand new somewhere between $700 and $800 for it. That was in 1955. Well, they won't even make that kind of vehicle now because nobody wants a gear shift on the steering column. But there's no way you're going to buy a new vehicle for, say, $750. You're just not going to do it. And that's quite a change, which causes me to flip then to the food side of things. It's not only the price of automobiles that's gone up, but food, like you mentioned. My wife and I, we keep our grocery receipts. We keep them hard copy and online. And I can tell you that in the last year, our grocery bill has increased. Now, this is grocery bill includes what we buy at the supermarket. It includes some paper products too, and laundry products. 25% increase. 25%. Now, they talk about inflation being only, what, 3 point something or other. I don't know what. Well, I don't know where they're getting that figure, what they're using as their yardstick. But it brings me to this point. I am a patriotic American. I love this country. Never been outside the continental United States. Have no plans to go. I don't have a passport. So anybody that wants me, they can come get me, I guess. But I'm here, been here, plan on staying here, dying here, being cremated here. Nancy can do with the ashes whatever she wants to do. But this much I can say about our government. The government is not necessarily the people, and it's not necessarily the land. And the government has been going on and on and on. It has been developing and evolving over the years to the point where they control or want to control not only the money, but how we think about money.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up because a couple of things that I've been reading about is, one of the things that comes out of if you do something that's over $9,999, at a bank or anything like that, you got paperwork and stuff. And the gist of that is it's their attempt, we think, to make it almost seem criminal.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if you walked in with $100,000 in cash,
That's right.
you would have so much scrutiny coming your way that you'd be like, this is $100,000 of U.S. greenbacks here. What gives? And I think that they're trying to put that enigma or whatever on having that much cash. And the other thing is and the other article that I forgot, doggone it, next week I'll bring it because we'll have a whole show talking about it. But is, this very deliberate yet slow-moving transition into a digital dollar. I mean, there is actually a digital dollar foundation. There's a digital dollar project in the U.S. government. I mean, folks, we are going to a digital dollar. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be Bitcoin. I mean, it's going to be a digital dollar that they come up with. And part of that is they want to know every penny you make.
That's right.
There's talk that they'll take taxes out as it hits your bank account.
That's right.
If you do something that's, not, let's say, kosher or whatever the term you want to use is, they could freeze your account.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just some scary things getting ready to happen in this country if we don't get, A, the right people in office, and B, take and let them know exactly how we feel. I mean, some of our liberties as U.S. citizens are gradually, day by day, week by week, being taken away from us. I mean, I could go on, and I don't want to do that and so forth because we do have you here for a reason, and it never fails anymore on my show. Somebody tries to attempt to reach me, so we'll put that one into the old voicemail and stuff like that. But one thing I do want to do before we get too much further into the show is, and I'm sure you remember this, Dr. Paul, from times you've viewed our show, we have a stewardship course that we like to do.
Right.
And the current one is called Gold. Gold is the name of the course. And for those of you that tune in every week, you know that it's not necessarily about the precious metal. It's about the gold that we find inside some people and stuff. So this week's lesson is called The Simple Way. And it starts out with the age-old questions of humanity are, who am I? What am I doing here? What is my purpose in life? Much confusion, frustration, and pain results when we try to solve these questions in our own strength or copy the world's blueprint for success. The answers are found only in Jesus as we discover both our God-given identity and God-given potential, the gold within. See, that's why I like this particular course, was that it's the gold within. When our family first moved and this is the authors, when our family first moved to live in Uganda in 2009, we were deeply challenged by the passage of Scripture in James 1:27 that says, pure and genuine religion is the sight of God the Father is caring for the orphan and the widow in her distress and keeping oneself from being polluted by the world. We decided we were going to very intentionally give ourselves to exploring this truth and learn more about the pure and genuine faith that James wrote about. How could we express that kind of faith in our daily lives? We sought to strip away religion and replace it with love, simple, uncomplicated daily acts of love, both for and on behalf of Jesus. We sought to make this a huge part of our daily lifestyle of worship, learning how to declare with both our hearts and our hands who Jesus is and what he has done. I don't claim to have all the answers to these questions, and to be honest, the more I pray about it, the more questions I have. But one thing I am increasingly convinced of is this: surely the gospel, surely church, surely having a relationship with Jesus, surely love should not be complicated. Instead, it should be simple and accessible to all, characterized by love. And he's got love all in uppercase. The world is in desperate need for God's people to stand up, be counted, and pay the cost. You only have to turn on the news to see stories from around the world of sickness, disease, natural disasters, humanitarian crisis, war, political manipulation, injustice, and abuse. We must be the generation who says, no, there is a different way. Take up the challenge, yield to Father God, and allow him to uncover the gold in your life. Then go and spend your life in the pursuit of uncovering that gold in others. Yes, there is a real cost to this. There is no cheap discipleship, but it is simple. You can share the love of God and be the hands and feet of Jesus daily, reaching out to touch those you encounter as you simply go. Anything less would be a tragic waste of your God-given potential. So go. See what Jesus can do with the little you have, fully yielded to him.
Good
Wow.
stuff. Good stuff, yeah.
And I would have to say that that's something that you've done probably your entire life from the stories that you've shared with me and so forth. What are your thoughts on that particular story?
Well, I like it, obviously. My wife and I, we are kingdom of God people. We believe in living according to the principles of the kingdom of God, which, of course, that's the gospel that Jesus preached. Jesus did not preach the gospel of Jesus like Paul preached the gospel of Jesus, the resurrected Christ. The gospel Jesus preached was the good news of the kingdom. And the kingdom, he said, has come. All we have to do is learn to live in it. There is a difference between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of man. And the key is, that's really saying, with a velvet cord woven through it, is how do you live in the kingdom of God and utilize and be a good steward of the resources that are visible, that are evident in the kingdom of man. Now, in this old King James translation of 1611, the kingdom of man concerning money and wealth was called mammon. And Jesus said, make friends of mammon, so that when you have a need, they will receive you into their habitation, which means make use of that system. So in other words, when you go to the grocery store, don't go in there and say to the manager, I'm praying for you, therefore give me groceries. You go in there with the little piece of plastic, rather than, most people aren't using checks anymore or cash. You go with that piece of plastic. You're using the world system to get something from that guy. I have an illustration. I think I used it with you maybe, and I've used it with others to show you how the world does business. if you indulge me here.
Sure.
And we'll contrast that to how God makes use of the system. I have here a $20 bill. Now, let's assume that Matt Pearson is sitting here, and I'm showing off my $20 bill, and Matt sees it, and he says, Paul, do you remember a few weeks ago I loaned you $40. I kind of need my money. I say, well, Matt, I've only got 20. I'll give you 20, and I owe you 20. And he says, thank you. And then you look across the table and you say, Matt, you may have forgotten, but when you had, after you loaned Paul that money, I loaned you $40, and I could kind of use my money. And Matt says, well, Tony, I only have 20. Here's 20. I'll owe you 20, and you take it. And I look over at Tony, and I say, Tony, you know, a couple of weeks ago, you borrowed $40 from me. I could use my money. And you say, well, I've only got 20. I'll give you 20 and owe you 20. Oh, thank you. So now you owe me 20. And then Matt looks at me and says, Paul, remember, you still owe me 20. I said, okay, you're paid off. And you look at Matt and say, Matt, you still owe me 20. He gives it to you, and he says, okay, you're paid off. And I look at you and I say, Tony, I need my money. And you hand it to me and you say, now you're paid off. And I say, yeah, I'm paid off. And guess who started the 20 and who still has the money? Now, along the way, there could be wear and tear on this physically, but we know that as this exchange happens in the world between banks and all the financial system and people with their paychecks and their consumerism and everything, the thing begins to lose value. So where does God fit in this picture? If we do business with people of like mind and we keep this money flowing, it will grow just like a tornado can grow. It sucks stuff into it. And then at a certain point, things begin to fall out. The excess, more than the tornado can hold, begins to fall out. And when Jesus said, when you give, it'll be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, shall men give into your lap. Back then, 2,000 years ago in Israel, in Judea, men wore like an apron, and they would hold it out and put stuff in it. That was their lap. And the point Jesus was making was, when giving means using whatever, when you use it and keep it going, moving, it draws into itself, in our case, from the world system. And then the overflow drops into our laps. So God has a way of using mammon if we understand mammon and then commit ourselves to what I call Christian stewardship, then all of a sudden we find ourselves managing our money rather than having money manage us. End of sermon. I'll pass the plate after we go off the air.
Well, I like that. I mean, that is definitely thought-provoking, and I mean, there's lots of things I think people need to deal with and stuff. I did like the very start of that where you were talking about this particular devotional and the fact that it was kind of trying to weave information from God's world into our current world.
Exactly.
And I think that's tough for everybody. I mean, you hear certain things on Sunday and Wednesday nights and stuff, and then during the day it's trying to scratch and claw and make a living and stuff, and sometimes it's just really difficult to do it the right way.
Well, Tony, another part of the message that I give people about stewardship is the Scripture makes it very clear, and of course, any good geologist will also agree that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. In other words, this planet, everything on it and in it, everything it produces, is because of God. And in my case, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of Jesus. Somebody else may have a different idea. So be it. It doesn't change the fact we don't own the planet, and all wealth comes out of the earth. Now, nobody wants to walk around with quarts of oil to try to use as a medium of exchange, nor do they want to build a warehouse and store it full of oil as wealth. because for one thing, you got to have an outlet for it. Somebody's going to have to be using it. But gold and silver, precious metals, they come out of the earth, and they're real. They're not like the fiat dollars or fiat $20. Fiat means in place of, substitute, F-I-A-T. It's not the name of an automobile.
No.
It has to do with money. Gold and silver are much more valuable than this thing here. And this thing here today will buy almost an ounce of silver, right?
Yeah, what we say, the spot was 23 and change.
Right. And this is the government says this is worth $20, but you and I both know it's not really worth $20. Not when you go out to buy something. If you buy, well, we're getting off into inflation again and all that complication stuff, but we just know that currency isn't worth what's printed on it as compared to how it was years ago. I remember when a $20 bill was a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I was a kid. I mean, I can remember getting a quarter to go to the, 7-Eleven, and that was a big deal.
Oh.
25 cents, but well, let's use that as a springboard into the pricing, because part of
Okay.
our show is I like to give current prices on precious and base metals.
Sure.
And right now, as we speak, as of 9:31 Central Standard Time, gold, the ask for gold is $1,886.80. It's down $11.50 today. Silver is $23.97. Platinum is up $11. It's at $900 even, and palladium is $2,393 per ounce, and rhodium. I know this is always the big one here, but rhodium is $13,100 per ounce. Now those are precious metals, and I keep saying per ounce because the prices I'm giving are in ounces. So those are the precious ones. Now the base metals. The prices I'll give are by pound. And copper, for example, is $3.01 a pound. Nickel is $6.58 a pound. Aluminum, 79 cents. Zinc, $1.09. Lead, 81 cents per pound. And uranium is $29.75 a pound. And as Dr. Paul was talking about here a second ago, a barrel of oil today, it's up 24 cents. It's $39.53 a barrel for crude oil. And then as far as the market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average as of 9:30 was up 361 points. It's at 27,813. And I'll stop there. I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff going on. I will mention, though, that Bitcoin, which we like to follow, Bitcoin is at $10,760 a coin, which I read yesterday or the day before. Bitcoin has been over $10,000 like 74 days in a row now, which is the longest it's been over 10,000 since, I think, 2017. And there's a lot of folks thinking, okay, if it breaks above 11,000, hold on, because it could be going places and so forth. So we're watching Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. Ethereum is $356 a coin. Litecoin is $46 a coin. Those are the three major ones that I follow. But I mean, any more these days, there's hundreds of cryptocurrencies out there. And I think that what we'll do is we'll dedicate an entire show to cryptos and Bitcoin here, maybe as soon as next week. And I think you'll find there's some interesting reasons to include Bitcoin. And, as we've said before, gold and silver probably should be, 5, 10, 15% of your portfolio, depending on who you are and your risk tolerance. I mean, it's kind of a case-by-case thing, but, something in there for what we call wealth insurance. And then Bitcoin, probably a lot of folks should just stay away from it. But for the others that, have the wherewithal and so forth, probably 1%. I mean, I've got a few people that say as much as 5% should be in the Bitcoin. And we'll get more into that in here in a couple weeks and so forth. But what do you think of those prices?
Well, first of all, I couldn't buy very much Bitcoin, as high as it is. It puts it more out of reach than Warren Buffett's company, as far as the stock market is concerned. Market prices, most people, Tony, and I speak as a layman in monetary matters, most people let this stuff just kind of fly over their heads. And I want to say something here in support of your show and on your behalf. And I'm not being paid to say this, by the way. Wish I was. But I want to be paid in Bitcoin, the big one. Anyway, folks, you need to start watching this show every week and tell others to do likewise so that you can become educated about monetary matters, about currency, about precious metals, about how all this economic stuff fits together, because it's the road and you're the rubber, and the rubber has to meet the road. If not, somebody else is going to manage everything for you. Now, I understand that you think, well, this is too complicated. Well, I remember when I started school, they had not invented kindergarten, let alone preschool. We were at home with Mom, sitting behind a wood-burning kitchen range in the wintertime, watching Mom do her thing. But then when I was 6, it was first grade time. Mothers left the room. Every kid was crying, squalling. They didn't want to learn because they didn't know the value of learning. They didn't know the value of being there. Some of you, you're tempted to point and click, get away, because you don't understand. You're not wanting to learn. Please hear what I'm saying to you. Things have changed a lot in my 85 years. You can learn this. Now, Tony, when I was in first grade, finally, we settled in, and guess what? We learned to print. And then we learned to read certain words and make certain sounds come together. That was a 9 months deal. Then, in second grade, we learned a little more. The next thing you know, they're teaching us something they don't teach anymore, cursive writing.
Yes.
And we learned cursive, and we learned phonics, and all of a sudden a whole new world opened up, because now we could read books, and we could not only write our name, but we could write all kinds of stuff. That's the way it is about finances and money. You may be in kindergarten, preschool, you may be in first grade. Stay with it. Be here every week at this time and learn, learn, learn. Because if you don't, you are setting yourself up to be a victim of the system. And God says He wants you to be a winner. End of my little message there.
No. I think that's very valuable, because really, for those of you that have tuned in all the time and stuff, you know that it wasn't too long ago that we were talking about, like, gold, for example, being over $2,000 an ounce. I mean, earlier this year, I think gold got to $2,060 one day. And now it's at the ask is $1,883 and 40 cents. And, so somebody that isn't educated might be going, well, gosh, that seems to be going the wrong direction. But what's happened is there's a sale. I mean, Dr. Paul and I should have a big sale sign up here saying sale. And if there was a shoe store and we had it and we had that out there, everybody and their brother would be coming in to buy shoes on sale or fishing tackle or, whatever our business was. If there was a sale, more often, hardware store. Oh my gosh. Harbor Freight, if you've ever gone over there when they got one of their sales on, I mean, it's like dangerous in that parking lot. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I guess my point is that right now there's a sale. And the same with silver. Silver's $23.71. That's the spot price. Now, to get into, like, let's say the way that Dr. Paul and I like to buy, which is, these eagles.
Yeah, silver eagles, silver dollars.
A silver eagle right now is $29.02. And a gold eagle is $1,977.89. There's a little premium, because that spot price that we mentioned before is the price that is from the miner to the mint. You and I and Dr. Paul, we're not going to get that price. But the price that we can get is the one that has the premiums involved for the eagle. And my point is that these are, prices that if we use that dollar cost averaging strategy I've talked about so much, where you just get into a systematic, disciplined approach to, let's say, gold and silver. I mean, really, you can use this with anything: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, just anything that you'd like to acquire. You just get into a system where, like, let's say, for example, every month you're going to put $100 into gold and silver. So 1 month when it's at $2,060 an ounce, you're buying less for your gold, maybe a couple of grams. And then when it's at 1883, you're getting it much more gold for your $100. And the benefit to you is that it takes the emotions out of it. Because I got to tell you, and as much as I'm up here talking and as the years of experience and stuff, I still have emotion creep in sometimes when I'm doing something one-off and not with my systematic plan. It's like, oh my gosh, is it the fear of missing out? FOMO. Oh, it's going this fast, and I better jump on. I don't want to miss out. Or fear and greed. There's been a lot of times I've told you stories about, where people like to buy high and sell low. And that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to buy low.
That's right.
And sell high. So this dollar cost averaging approach helps you do that, whether it's with gold and silver or feed or seed or whatever it is that you do and like to put your money into. It's a way to average out the cost. The average cost, or the average price should be less than your average cost if you do it that way. And so that way, you're able to acquire whatever it is. In this case, we're talking gold and silver. And I know that Dr. Paul has recently, kind of explored some of the different things we've talked about and so forth. Do you have any ideas or lessons that you've learned as far as gold and silver in the last couple months?
Yes. I've learned that there's a lot of younger people who need to be paying attention and calling you to find out about a very special program that you offer. And because there's two ways, you can either have the physical precious metals in hand, or you can have them on an account that is online. You younger people know about online, so forth. Much better than messing around with the stock market as you know it, the Dow Jones and all that. Because, Tony, that statue out in front of the stock market on Wall Street is the statue of a bull, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
They don't put a statue of a bear. The bull is when the market is up. The bear market is when it's down. Where did they get that symbol for the bull? It comes from the Old Testament and a god that the Israelites made the mistake of serving every now and then, and they got reprimanded. The god's name was Baal, B-A-A-L, or in the Hebrew, it would be Baal, and the symbol was a bull, and had to do with greed for material things.
Interesting.
And that's the symbol out in front of Wall Street. Wall Street, the Dow Jones, Standard & Poor's, all really, quite frankly, is a gamble. It's a gamble. With God, there is no gamble. He is sure and he is certain. Now, for those who say, I'm young, but I don't have any money. Well, you just told them, a little bit every month, a little bit, and it begins to add up in a savings that's very accessible and very safe as it can be in this world. I have another hint for them, though. Don't write off older people. I don't hide my age. Fact is, I have to watch out. I don't take holy pride in it. I am 85. I am learning more about monetary matters than at any time in my life. My website was designed and is serviced by a man who lives in a town of maybe 600 people. He's 80 years old. He was an organic farmer, and his knees gave out. He couldn't get down in the dirt anymore, so he learned website construction at age 75. Now, some of you young ones, you have parents and grandparents who are older, and if you want to make certain that they're going to be able to leave you an inheritance, tell them to watch this show, because it is the new gold standard, it's the new silver standard, it's the new precious metal standard. It's the new way of doing business that God's been using for thousands of years. And guess what? As long as there's anything to look at, God will be involved, and even when there isn't. So, young people, learn, tell the older people, because they can still learn it too.
Well, and thanks for that. I mean, you know, the thing with gold and silver is they've been around for like 5,000 years. I mean, think of how many dynasties and societies and kingdoms and, you know, all these different kinds of political entities over the centuries that gold and silver has survived. And the truth of the matter is, and I might be off by just a little bit, there's been something like, I want to say, 260 fiat currencies in the history of man. How many of those fiat currencies have survived?
Not many. Ours started in back in the colonial days, when we were still operating on a British system mainly, and of course we had the great experiment when there was the War of Northern Aggression. Some people call it the Civil War, and the Confederate States of America printed money and became worthless. And before that, during the Revolutionary War, the Continental Congress printed money, and they have an old saying that it wasn't worth a continental. That's where it came from, because the continental dollar had no value. So you can take this $20 bill, and it's going to get less and less and less as far as what it will purchase. If your parents and grandparents are only dealing in these, switch them over to some silver, because in silver, this is worth $23 and something, and it's not diminishing. It'll just get more valuable as time goes on. Choice is yours. Choice is mine. This or silver or gold. I like silver, personally.
Yeah, and you know, unfortunately with human nature, and I've seen this so many times in my career, in human nature, you know, we think it doesn't matter. We, you know, just, it's not our position, it's not our deal and stuff, until it's too late.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, you know, you find out, oh, I do need silver, or I do need gold to survive and provide for my family and all this kind of stuff. And you go out to acquire some, and you know, instead of it being $23 an ounce, it's $230 an ounce.
Right.
Or instead of $18.50 an ounce for gold, it's $10,000. I mean, there's some people that I follow, I kid you not, that are talking about, you know, silver being over 3 figures and gold being over 6 figures. I mean,
Right.
there's some people out there that are like, you know, if this happens and that happens, you know, that would not be out of the ordinary as far as the price escalation because of supply and demand. So anyway, we're just kind of getting going, and unfortunately we're running out of time. So why don't we'll start to wind this down a little bit. First off, thank you so much for being on this morning. I know you're a busy man and have a lot of irons in the fire, and for you to take an hour out of your time, or an hour and a half with transportation and stuff, I sure appreciate it. And
I've had a good time. Good time.
I think we've had some good things come up on the show and stuff. You know, we always like to throw out a gratitude to Jim and Pam Whining for everything they're doing. And, of course, Mr. Matt sitting over here looking at his phone. He's pretty impressive with some of his stuff he does for Acts Media Group and Acts Ministry. And there's a lot of good people here. I mean, I guess I would close with, if you don't have a ministry that you follow or a ministry that you tithe to, you might take a strong look at Acts Ministry or some of the ministries that are in Acts. You know, we've talked about Matt's dad before, who has a ministry in here that's for veterans. And boy, howdy, I tell you what, they do some incredible things for those veterans and stuff, which they need all the help they can get. And that's probably fodder for another show all in itself and stuff. But we just got a lot of good people here, a lot of good projects, ministries, and so forth. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for your support. If you need to reach us, by the way, Dr. Paul's website, not his personal one, but one that you can go to and learn more about gold and silver, is www.7kmetals.com/Paul Collins. So PAULCOLLINS. And if you need to reach me, I'm at 417-755-0700. You're welcome to text me there. And with that all said, do you have any final comments or anything? Or
Yeah, you young people, this thought came to my mind. You're probably thinking, I can't walk around with a pocket full of silver dollars. Guess what? I watch people in the supermarket. They don't write checks. They don't pay with cash. They use a little plastic card. Many of you use this. You can do business with this if all your money is in silver and gold. There is a way. Talk to Tony.
Yep.
Talk to Tony.
Yep. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much. Matt, we're signing off. Have a good day. It's beautiful outside. Please enjoy this last day of September 2020. Thank you.